Hello, everyone. My name is Sonja Brown. I attend Union Bethel AME Church in Brandywine, Maryland, and I am the Second Episcopal District Women's Missionary Society Treasurer. Today, I want to speak about what it is to be a treasurer. So, what is a treasurer? Well, Merriam-Webster defines treasurer as an officer entrusted with the receipt, care, and disbursement of funds, such as a governmental officer charged with receiving, keeping, and dispersing public revenues, and the executive financial officer of a club, society, or business corporation. Additionally, it defines a treasurer as a guardian of a collection of treasurers, such as a curator. So for the purposes of today's discussion, we're going to focus on that first definition, and I put a blue star next to it. And we'll go into more information on the next slides. Okay, well, now that we know what a treasurer is, let's talk about some of the characteristics of a treasurer. So one big characteristic of a treasurer is to be trustworthy and have integrity. So, dealing with money is a big task. And so everyone needs to be able to trust you. And you also need to make sure that you're being accountable for your actions as you take care of the funds of the missionary society. The next item is that you are comfortable with handling money. So as a treasurer, you're going to be taking in different sums of money. And so you need to be able to count the money and be able to maintain that money until it's deposited, or when you are writing checks or dispersing money. The next item we have here is to be organized, be a planner. So as a treasurer, there are different things that may come up, things that obligations that the missionary society has. So you need to keep an idea of what may be due at a certain time frame, or that you have to actually write from your checkbook, or if money may be coming into you from different parties, you need to keep that in mind as well. And also, like I said, just being organized to make sure you keep track of all of your documentation and all of the money. The next thing is being detail oriented. This is a big thing too, as a treasurer, is because since you are keeping the money of the missionary society, you need to make sure you are taking special attention to your documentation, making sure that you're writing down the exact amounts that are coming in and going out, so that you can keep an accurate count of the funds of the society. The next thing we have here is being dependable. So again, there are many different demands at the missionary society level, and we do so much outreach and helping others. So want to make sure that when certain requests come in, that you need to be available to handle the business that needs to be conducted. And then one of the last things that I have here is being computer savvy. So technology has gotten so, it's so advanced now. There's many different things that you can use to help you. One of the basic things may be Excel, Microsoft Excel. That's just a spreadsheet that you can use to keep track of money coming in and coming out. You can make it for various forms that you might use. There's other softwares that are available. One big one that you might have heard of is QuickBooks. So just wanted to highlight a few of the characteristics of a treasurer. So keep that in mind as we continue to go into our next topic. So, since we are part of the Women's Missionary Society, I wanted to highlight a few items that are responsibilities based on the Constitution and bylaws. So, and there's various different levels within our missionary society. So I did, pull a few from the different levels. It's not a complete list, but I should, encourage everyone to go and take a look at the responsibilities. But I do want to just highlight some of these. So the first item here, become informed concerning the financial responsibility of the local society. So although this says local society, I think this is one that all levels could benefit from. You want to understand what obligations the missionary society has, whether it be at the local, area, conference, district, or even connectional. The next item is receive funds. So at various different levels, you're going to always be collecting funds and receiving funds from various people. And then one of the next item, you're going to be writing checks. And here it says write, sign, and mail checks that are countersigned by the president, or write, sign, and mail checks that have been authorized for payment by the president. The next item is to make itemized financial reports. This is for the local, but it says to the society at its regularly scheduled meetings. But this is something that's done at various levels as well. Being able to make reports that are given to a general body. And then the last item here we have, in consultation with the president, establish a budget for the local society. I believe in the bylaws, it was for the local society, and I believe it also saw it for the connectional, but other levels, I believe, do that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So you're elected treasurer. What next? Here are a few steps that I've identified. You want to determine what the balance is in the checkbook register and the bank account. Also, you want to start to receive and disperse funds. You want to start to maintain the checkbook register. You also should reconcile your checkbook register and the bank statement. You're going to start to provide reports. You should develop processes and forms. And then the last two, you want to maintain the documentation and develop a budget. And so we're going to go into a little more detail in each of these items going forward. But high level, these are some things, some next steps to take as a treasurer. So determine the balance in the checkbook register and the bank account. So once you're elected as treasurer, you should coordinate with the previous treasurer to obtain the checkbook register. Also add you and any new signers to the bank account, and then remove the previous signers. And when I say signers, those are the people that are now going to be signing the check and have access to the account. The next item, you should also get the recent bank statements and take a look at those. And then also I have a sort of a catch-all. You want to obtain any other supporting documentation that the treasurer might have that might be of good assistance and to you understanding the nature and the balance of the account. Receive and disperse funds. So on the left side here, we have receive funds. And here I put that you can get it in person or mail. So you're going to receive, checks, cash. I would suggest you only take cash in person. And then also, in this day and age, we have so many different methods that we can give electronically. I've listed just a couple here: Cash App and Givelify. And then on the other side, I have disperse funds. So typically you're going to be writing checks. You may have a debit card that's associated with your account, and there could be some occasions that you might do wire transfers as well. As a continuation, I wanted to show just a slide here showing how the funds typically flow in the Missionary Society. One thing to note, since we are a connectional church, we have different levels. So the depiction on the left shows, we have our local church that reports up to the area, which then reports up to the conference, which reports up to the district and reports to the connectional. So when we're writing checks, all checks should be made payable to the level above, unless you've gotten other instructions. So the bullets below that show, at your local church, you're going to have members who are writing checks to the local society. Then your local society would write a check made payable to the area made payable to the conference writes a check made payable to the district, and district made payable to the connectional level. So that's just a standard that typically would take place and unless you hear otherwise. Maintaining a checkbook register. So maintaining a checkbook register is where you are tracking deposits or credits and payments, withdrawals. So also what you want to do, you want to maintain a running balance so that you know how much money is available in your account. So each time you deposit or spend money, you want to enter it into your checkbook register and calculate an updated balance. So in your register, you want to enter information such as the check number or a particular code for the transaction that you use, the date, a description of the transaction, the amount of the payment or the amount of the deposit, and then your new balance that you've calculated. So some examples, I listed just a few examples of what you might consider income or something you might deposit, income that would turn into a deposit. You would get some income coming from church offering, from fundraisers, dues at your local society, and any other type of donations that you might receive. Some examples of expenses, or payments, assessments, any money you spend for outreach efforts, your donations for dollars for missions, or your donation for a Dorcas, or think about any registration fees for various conferences and meetings. So what I want to do next here is I want to do a little bit of a scenario, just as an exercise for those that might not be familiar with maintaining the checkbook register. And so for the purpose of this scenario, I want everyone to assume that the checkbook register balance as of August 31st, 2021, for your local society is $4,893.57. So the bullets below we're going to address each one of these lines and then show how it should be reflected in your checkbook register. And so don't worry about it. As we go to the next slides, I'm going to show each scenario, and you'll be able to follow along. So the first item, you received a $500 donation through the church offering. So what we have here, you can see the first line where you have the balance as of August 31st, right? That was at $4,800 and some change, say about $4,900. And so what you're doing is you have to make a line for the $500 donation. So since this was a deposit, for the first column here, you have check/code. Now, since this wasn't a check, maybe you come up with your own type of, identifier or code to put. And I put bank because I just said, hey, you're depositing at the bank. You put the date that you deposited. So we have September the 5th, 2021. You put a notation to say what it was. It was an offering donation. And then you can see under the deposit credit column, you see that there's $500. But then under balance, you see there's a new balance now. So what you have to do is you take that $4,893 that is above, that was brought forward, and you add $500 to it. And that's how you get your new balance of the $5,300. Next scenario, you wrote a $25 check for Dollars for Missions. So what you do, you write a new line. So you write the check number. So you see the 1898. You write the date. And then again, how we discussed earlier about writing a check to the next level up. So the scenario is based on a local society. So you see it's written to ABC area WMS. And there's a notation for, there's a notation for Dollars for Missions. So then you put $25 in the payment column because it was an expense. And then what you do, you calculate your new balance. So you subtract that 25 from the 5,300 line, and the new balance is $5,368.57. The next item, purchase items at Walmart for disaster relief, and you spent $250 with a debit card. So in this situation, for the check code, we said card because you just want to note that it was a debit card transaction. Put the date as October 9th. You put Walmart, you put a notation to say what it was for, disaster relief, and it's $250. So you subtract the $250 from the previous balance and you get $5,118.57. The next scenario, you raised $1,500 for Dorcas. So that was a deposit. So you see that you put the code was the bank. You put the date, you put it was Dorcas fundraiser. You deposited $1,500. So now your balance has now increased and it's now $6,618.57. And then I grouped the next two transactions because they're sort of in and out. So you might have some situations where you receive the information, you receive the funds, it goes in, and then you end up writing a check for the same amount. So since the transactions were back to back, I grouped these, but you collected $350 for the Second Episcopal District Mission Institute, and you end up writing a check for that amount as well. So for the first line, you put bank, because it was a deposit, and you put the notation it was for. You see deposited 350. The new balance was 6,968 and 57 cents. And then you wrote a check for it to your area, and you put a notation of what it was for 350. And so the new balance is 6,618 and 57 cents. The last scenario is you wrote a 1,500 check for Dorcas. So again, this is one of those ins and outs. So you deposited earlier, you deposited a 1,500 from the fundraiser, but now you're writing the check to the area. So you wrote the check number, which was 1,900. You fill in the date. It's written to the area. You put that it was for Dorcas, and then you put the payment amount was 1,500, and the new balance is now 5,118 and 57 cents. So just wanted to do a scenario in case anyone was not familiar with updating the checkbook register. So I hope that this was a little exercise that was helpful for you. So the next topic I want to cover is reconciling your checkbook register and the bank statement. So the main purpose, one of the purposes of what you're trying to do is identify any differences between the checkbook register balance and the bank statement balance. And this is something that you should do on a regular basis, for example, monthly. The whole idea is that you start out with the checkbook register balance, and then you want to incorporate anything that your bank may know about that your register doesn't. So you might be adding items such as interest earned, or you might have to subtract bank fees or any automatic payments. And then you calculate a new checkbook register balance. And then on the opposite side, on your bank statement, you want to do the same thing. You want to start out with the balance for that particular period. You want to then incorporate anything that you knew about that was marked in your register, your checkbook register, but the bank doesn't know about. So this might include something like a deposit or transfer that hasn't been reflected that you need to add, or it could be that you need to subtract some any outstanding checks, meaning checks that have not cleared yet, or any other withdrawals that your register is not aware of. And so when you do that, then you also need to calculate a revised bank statement balance as well. And so the goal at the end is for the revised checkbook register balance and the revised bank statement balance to be the same. And so I'm going to, next slide, I just want to show a quick little example about this. So what you can see here at the top on the left, you have the checkbook register balance, which was $5,118.57. The bank statement balance was $6,608.57. And then what you then do is you incorporate some of those changes that we talked about that one side might not have known about. So for the sake of this scenario, this example, on the left side, what we did here, there was down towards the bottom, there was something that we needed to subtract. We didn't have any additions, but there was a monthly service fee that the bank charged, and it was for $10. So you need to put that on your checkbook register side as a subtraction. And then you can see that the new or the revised checkbook register balance is now $5,108.57. Now on the bank statement side, there was no additions as well, but there was a subtraction because there was an outstanding check. So the bank had a balance of $6,608.57, but they didn't know about that last check that you wrote for Dorcas. So what you should do is list out that check and you write the $1,500 amount. So since there were no additions that you need to add to the bank statement balance, you're going to take that $6,608.57. You're going to subtract the $1,500 outstanding check from Dorcas, and then you have a revised bank statement balance of $5,108.57. So as you can see here, now the revised checkbook register balance and the revised bank statement balance, they now match. So that's the goal. So if you get to a point and you go through this exercise and the revised balances don't match, then you have to go back and do some more research, try to figure out what is causing that difference between the two. The next topic I want to cover is providing reports. So as a treasurer, you should be giving reports on a regular basis, for example, monthly, and that might, at the local society, that's done more on a regular basis. But you should coordinate with your president regarding the format and how frequent. So some reports could be, more more high level, and some might be more detailed. To the right here, I have an example. So this might be something you might want to show on a monthly basis, where you show the balance as of, let's say, a previous period. So this example here is, imagine that this is a report of activity for the month of October. So what I have here is the balance as of September 30th was $5,368.57. The income that occurred during the month of October was, we raised $1,500 for Dorcas, and then we also took in $350 for the Second Episcopal District Mission Institute registration, because 10 missionaries wanted to go, and the cost was $35. So you can see the total income is $1,850, and then down to expenses, we spent $250 at Walmart for disaster relief, and then that $350 for registration was spent. We took it in, and then we wrote a check out for $350. So you see total expenses was $600, and then your balance as of the end of October is $6,618.57. So what you did here, you took that balance brought forward, you added your total income, you subtracted your total expenses, and then you got a balance as of the end of the month that you're reporting on. So this is just one example, but again, work with your president on the information that she would like to see, and then implement that into going forward as you go forward. So now that you're new treasurer, you might want to develop processes and forms. I've listed just a few examples of things you might want to consider, and you just have to find what works good for you. You could also reach out to the previous treasurer just to find out what they may have used, but here's just a few suggestions. So the first one is fund receipts. So when you receive funds from various people, you might decide that you want to have a form that they fill out. This might be a good way to go back and see the historical information. The suggestion is, maybe you want to have the check number, have them to fill out the check number, the date, the amount, the purpose, or breakdown, because there could be some situations where you get a check and it could be for multiple purposes. So, if you ever need to go back, and you might have in your register that you deposited a check for a particular amount, but when you need to go back and try to figure out what it was for, it might be good to have that documentation. Another form to consider or process is fund disbursement. So meaning when you pay out money, one thing to note in the bylaws, there was a theme that I saw, is that the president must approve. Either the president may request and or approve. So if you have a form that you create, some information to know is who it should be made payable to, what is the amount, and again, what is the purpose. If you have to write a check and it might be for multiple reasons, you want to know what that is as well. And then at the local, this might be more for the local and some instances in other levels, but if there are any requests for reimbursements that come from others, you need to make sure it is approved by the president and there are receipts to support the expense. So that's just a suggestion. Make sure before you're writing any checks that you're making sure that the president is aware, and also that again, if somebody has spent money and they need to be reimbursed, you want to have a receipt for that expense. So the next item is considering a process when there are multiple signers or card holders. So if you have multiple people that are on the account, you want to make sure that there's communication and that you're aware of any purchases or expenses. And again, also that they also provide the receipts as well and the purpose. So this just makes sure everyone's on the same page. As a treasurer, you need to be aware of what's going on because you're reporting on it. So if something is spent, you may see it. You might see the expense on the bank statement, but to know the detail, you really need to have that communication going and have the documentation to support it. The last item I have here is to provide receipts for funds received. And this is optional. You might write a lot of checks, and sometimes it depends on if somebody would like it themselves, but you might consider getting a receipt book to where anytime somebody gives you funds, you could write a receipt. But again, that's optional. If it's a lot of activity, that might be a lot, but just something to consider. Maintaining documentation. So we've covered a lot of information so far, and a lot of the stuff that's listed here are items that we've discussed, but I just want to reiterate it that you want to maintain the checkbook register. You want to, if you do decide to implement some type of form for receipts or disbursements or disbursement requests, you want to maintain that documentation so that you can go back and refer to it. Another thing to consider is whether you need to make check copies for anything. You are going to be writing the check information in your register, but sometimes there could be some activity where you feel it necessary to make copies of the check. So just consider that. Again, we talked about receipts for expenses. You definitely want to have that. And then any other supporting documentation that you think, this is more of a catch-all. So, if there's something that you think that would definitely be useful to go back and refer to for yourself, or even for someone after you serve your term, consider holding on to that. So the last item that we're going to cover is develop a budget. So this is something that you should do alongside your president. What you want to do is you want to estimate how much income and expenses are expected for the specified period. So depending on how your society may do it, it might be for a conference year, it could be for a calendar year, but a good place to start is with the previous period's income and expense. So how much money you actually took in and how much money you actually expended. What you could do from that is you could account for any known increases and decreases, meaning if you know the amount or the cost that you spent somewhere is going to go down, you could account for that. And then also if you know that there's some things that you did last year that you aren't going to do this year, you could remove those. Or if there's some things that are going to be added this year that weren't there last year, you could add those. Another thing people might do, they might decide to increase their budget by a specified percentage. So if their budget was a particular amount, they might say, okay, well, let's just increase everything by 5%. So these are just some considerations. But again, this is something that you should do alongside your president if it is applicable for the level or the society. So just to give a recap of some of the topics we discovered today, now that you're a treasurer, you want to determine the balance in the checkbook register in the bank account. You're going to start to receive and disperse funds. You want to make sure you maintain the checkbook register. You want to also make sure you reconcile the checkbook register and the bank statement. You're going to provide reports, develop some processes and forms, maintain documentation, and potentially develop a budget. So that is all I have for today. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. And I hope that there was something that I covered today that will be helpful as you embark on being a treasurer. Thank you again.